Welcome to Roll to Hit Gaming's Impressions. In this video, we conclude our 3-part game showcase. We've gone into the box, through the rules, and out onto the table. The time has come to tell you what we thought of the game. Thank you for joining us. Let's head into the game room for your Roll to Hit Gaming Impressions host.
Welcome back. I'm Lucas from Roll to Hit Gaming, and today I'll give you my impressions of Ultra Tiny Epic Kingdoms, designed by Scott Almes and published by Gamelyn Games. The idea here was to take a game from the Tiny Epic line and make something that would hopefully find its way onto a mass market retail shelf. Now, if this experiment works out and brings new gamers into the hobby, that's a plus for all board game enthusiasts. The question is, how would making this game smaller than it already was affect its quality? Before we answer that question, let's open the box one last time and take a look at its Ultra Tiny Epic components. Pictured here is the deluxe version of the game. It comes with a draw bag that has the game logo printed on it, into which the game box and the war die fit perfectly. While it is possible to put all of the wooden pieces back into the box, it can be a bit of a pain, so the bag also provides a great place to store these pieces. The artwork on the game box is visually appealing and should stand out nicely on a retailer's shelf. Inside the box, there are basically two types of components: the wooden game pieces and the cards which make up the play surface. Primarily, the wooden pieces are simply standard wooden blocks, so if you're familiar with Tiny Epic Kingdoms, you'll find yourself missing the more thematic army meeples and resource pieces. That being said, these pieces are going to hold up under even the heaviest play and serve their purpose well, so if the size of this game is something that appeals to you, I don't think you'll find that loss of theme a problem. The cards make up the various game trackers and the playing surface. This is where you'll find most of the art in this game. Overall, the game is visually appealing, however, I find that the art on the territory cards is a little lacking. The colors really contrast one another in an abrasive way, and while this art is certainly good, it doesn't measure up to the rest of the artwork in this game. The art of the faction cards is where the visual appeal really comes through. The graphic design of these faction cards provide both the play information you need, as well as a touch of great fantasy art that helps boost the theme. The only real con with any of the components are the black borders and the card art, which extends to the edge of the cards, so over time you're going to start seeing the wear of play on these cards. However, at the price point for this game, I'm not sure that's really much of an issue, but it is something you should consider. So let's talk about how the game plays. First off, the rulebook is definitely a plus. This is a full color rulebook with some really nice gameplay examples, and the rules are clearly stated, so even though this is a rules-light game, a good read of the rulebook really gets you into the action quickly. Beginning with the action selection mechanic each turn, this is basically a follow the leader type mechanic. I pick an action, and then you also have the option of selecting that same action. As a benefit to non-active players, you can also collect resources, and this balances out because when you're not the active player, you'll have that option too. Resource management is a major factor in a successful strategy in this game because resources are required to build all aspects of the game which score victory points. So if you're short on resources, you'll probably find yourself lagging behind, and that adds a really interesting decision each turn on whether to collect resources or follow the selected action. The area control aspect of the game also plays into resource gathering, because the regions you control define which resources you can collect. So obviously, the more areas you can control, the more resources you collect each turn. I worried that this might create a runaway leader situation. However, the more armies you have in play, the more expensive it is to put a new army out. Combine that with the risks of losing resources in war or being forced to retreat, and it kind of keeps everybody on a level playing field. The ability for a player to set their starting resources as they wish can add to your strategy as well. Do you load up on starting food so that you can get a bunch of armies out quickly? Or do you load up on ore or mana to work on your tower or your magical abilities? You really do have to do just about everything in this game to be successful, so this can add to your strategy at the beginning of the game to help you get there more effectively. So let's talk about combat. This is a 4X game after all, so combat obviously has to be a part of that. While the theme would lend you to believe that this is going to be a dice-chucking Ameritrash style game, it's not. Other than setup, if your group chooses to do the random factions and territories, there's no luck in this game. Everything that happens is based on a player's decision, and combat is no different. Victory in combat is determined by how many resources you commit to the war, which makes a ton of sense if you think about it. If you send more supplies to your armies than your opponent, you win. Now, war can be very costly, and sometimes even defeat is more costly than the war itself, adding another layer of interesting choices to this game. The number of armies a player controls at the end of the game contributes to victory points, so more than likely you'll find combat a necessary part of your strategy in bigger games, so if that turns you off, it's probably something you should consider. There are only a few ways to gain victory points in Ultra Tiny Epic Kingdoms, which could cause this game to become a little samey, but the faction-specific powers ensure that each time you play, based on your unique faction abilities, you'll have different advantages which alter your strategy from game to game and adds a nice level of variety and replayability. Each game takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and while I certainly don't mind a game taking an hour, the longer a game gets, the more I worry about downtime. There are games which are very popular, which quite frankly I can't stand, because by the time I take my next turn, I could have taken a nap in between. Ultra Tiny Epic Kingdoms is not one of these games. Downtime is almost non-existent due to two factors. The first, on a player's turn, they take and resolve an action, which is incredibly quick. Then each player either follows or collects resources. So you're involved in every step of the game each turn, which for me is really a big plus. Finally, the variants for this game include solo play, a 2-player version, and a special added rule for 5 players. The solo version, which we featured in our playthrough, introduces a compass card and die roll to determine the actions and movements of the dummy player. While this is certainly more random than the multiplayer versions, it's a nice option for anyone who enjoys solo play, but I found it a little unforgiving. The rate at which the dummy player gains resources keeps the pressure on you to make smart and timely choices to maximize your benefit and reduce theirs. There's an option to increase or decrease the starting resources the dummy player has so that you can customize the difficulty to your level. While this variant doesn't do much for me, I'm happy that it exists for players who enjoy it. The 2-player version of the game adds a third neutral kingdom to the game, and players score victory points based on controlling the neutral lands and conquering the neutral armies. I really like this variant. Without it, the 2-player game would simply have been a very in-your-face warfest, which, if you like that kind of thing, is still an option. But I found that the additional methods of scoring victory points added another aspect to the game that I really enjoyed. I was able to conquer the neutral armies to earn victory points and position myself to claim additional victory points if my opponent wandered out of lands they had conquered. I'm okay with the solo variant, and I like the multiplayer version, but the 2-player Lost Kingdom variant is the star of this game for me. If you're playing the game with 5 players, then the player who clears the action card is skipped and play moves to the next player. This is a little odd for me, but it happens to each player as you move along, so I'm not sure how much it affects gameplay, either positively or negatively. Ultimately, I think this is a good game. Its size makes it even more portable than its parent version, and I've put it into my backpack to keep around for on-the-go play opportunities. Gameland's goal of shrinking this game without sacrificing gameplay definitely worked. For that reason, I'm going to give Ultra Tiny Epic Kingdoms a die rating of D8. This is a quick, fun, fantasy-themed 4X that can really shine in the right setting and with the right group of players, and offers a surprising amount of gameplay packed into a small package. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Ultra Tiny Epic Kingdoms. Until next time, I'm Lucas from Roll to Hit Gaming. Have a great one.
Thank you for joining Roll to Hit Gaming to see and hear our impressions of this game. Details of our dice rating system can be seen on your screen now. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, please click the like and subscribe buttons. Find us on Facebook and Twitter. Join in the conversation in the comments below. We'll see you next time, and as always, I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good.